Good morning. This is Father Stephen Kelly from St. John's Church in Detroit. We're continuing our series of daily morning meditations where we generally look at one or another lessons that are assigned for morning or evening prayer, what is known as the Daily Office Lectionary. And today's the last day of our St. Michael's Conference for Youth. We have Mass in the morning, and then we have what was known as the Pageant of Salvation, and then we have our final closing ceremony. And thank you all for the prayers that you have offered this week for God's blessing upon this conference. As you see, I'm still at the conference center, and behind me is St. Thomas Aquinas, off in the background there, who is not a Jesuit, actually. He's a Dominican, but he's got a lovely statue here at the conference center grounds. I thought today we would take a look at the lesson that's assigned from the book Daniel. Now, remember the story of Daniel. You've got these Jews who are now in Babylon, and Nebuchadnezzar, the king, is living kind of a strange, peaceable life along with them. But there are plenty of people who are jealous of what God is doing in blessing the people of Israel who are there in exile. And so they force Nebuchadnezzar to build an idol of a false god and force everybody to burn incense and worship and fall down, which of course the Jews cannot do. This is a trap. This is a way for them to get Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego into trouble. And in fact, that's exactly what happens. We pick up now in the third chapter. We're going to pick up our story. Actually, the reading starts at 19. I thought we would pick up a little bit later than that. Verse 20. And he commanded the most mighty men that were in the army to bind Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego, and to cast them into the burning fiery furnace. And these men were bound in their coats and hosen and hats and their other garments, and were cast into the midst of the burning fiery furnace. Therefore, because the king's commandment was urgent and the furnace exceeding hot, the flame of the fire slew those men, and it took up Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego. And these three men, Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego, fell down, bound into the midst of the burning fiery furnace. Then Nebuchadnezzar, the king, was astonished, and rose up in haste, and spake, and said unto his counselors, Did not we cast three men bound into the midst of the fire? They answered and said unto the king, True, O king. And he answered and said, Lo, I see four men loose, walking in the midst of the fire, and they have no hurt, and the form of the fourth is like the Son of God. Then Nebuchadnezzar came near to the mouth of the burning fiery furnace, and spake and said, Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego, ye servants of the Most High God, come forth, and come hither. Then Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego came forth in the midst of the fire. And the princes and the governors and the captains and the king's counselors, being gathered together, saw these men, upon whose bodies the fire had no power, nor was a hair of their head singed, neither were their coats changed, nor the smell of fire had passed on them. Then Nebuchadnezzar spake and said, Blessed be the God of Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego, who hath sent his angel and delivered his servants that trusted in him, and have changed the king's word, and yielded their bodies, that they might not serve nor worship any god except their own God. Therefore I make a decree that every people, nation, language, which speak anything amiss against the God of Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego shall be cut in pieces, and their houses shall be made a dunghill, because there is no other God that can deliver after this sort. Then the king promoted Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego in the province of Babylon. What a great story, right, about how God's providence allowed this to happen, and yet because of their faithfulness, he also did not allow them to be burned up in the fire. But what is particularly interesting to us as members of the New Covenant is the words out of the mouth of King Nebuchadnezzar when he saw another being in the fire. Three were thrown in, and he sees a fourth, and he describes him as like a son of God. Now, people of the original covenant would claim it must have been God's angel, as we hear in the text. That's how they put it. But is there something else going on there? Could it perhaps be that he in fact saw an image of the second person of the Holy Trinity? All I know is that God is certainly at work. He is present in the original Testament as well as the New Testament. And in that Old Testament, God in Trinity is in existence, right? After all, when he created man, he created them in our image. That's plural, ladies and gentlemen. So God in Trinity has been since the beginning of all time and in all time. And for Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego, whose names are just fun to say, aren't they? It certainly is the blessing of blessings. Today's Saturday, which means, of course, we gather tomorrow for worship at St. John's Episcopal Church. Now, sadly, we say goodbye to this beautiful Manresa Retreat Center, and we head back to St. John's, which is equally beautiful in a different way, and most beautiful because it will be with you, the people of St. John's, joining us for worship, 7:30 morning prayer, 8 o'clock Holy Communion or 10 o'clock Holy Communion, and 5 p.m. evening prayer with Holy Communion. And I do hope that you have a wonderful Saturday. May God bless you.